Thank you for taking the time. Another one of these off the wall things I've got working on. So,
I appreciate you having me.
and I figured since we're all in the same boat, and you're aging just like I am, this is kind of topical.
Oh, you mean like fine wine? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got like 5 questions. We see where they go. If you don't like, but no tricks. Everything's cool. Let's see where we can start. You ready?
Yeah.
Oh, as you reflect on your journey as a hard rock heavy metal musician, what emotions arise when you think about the impact your music has had on your fans throughout the years?
It's actually pretty crazy. I was doing a podcast 2 weeks ago talking to somebody who wanted to do a deep dive about all the stuff I've been a part of over the years. And he was talking about how Still Suffering is still one of his favorite albums, still holds up, and it's in heavy rotation. And he's like, what did you ever think you'd have this kind of impact? I'm like, nah, dude. I'm like, you took time to write something because it's what felt right in your head. It sounded right, looked right, everything about it worked for you. And then you put it out there, and if it gets received, it gets received. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It is what it is. But the fact that so many people have it's resonated with over the years, and the fact that we still get letters from people saying, "Man, this was the soundtrack. Your music was the soundtrack of my adolescence." And I've been through so many things, and your music was there the whole time. Even just with the last 2 albums, Between Unholy and Divine, Volume 1 and 2. Over the last 2 years, like Pat and I got a lot of messages and stuff from people saying, man, I love the fact that I can always count on you guys to be real. You're always saying what I'm thinking. And it's always relevant to stuff that's going on in my life. There's some people that had some divorce, some people that were, struggling in a dark place. And, those some of the tough subjects we touch on. And it's just great to, after all this time, to people still be like, man, I'm still here in the corner listening, and for us, for Pat and I, that's like the utmost compliment, because it's nice to know that people are still listening and we're not just peeing in the breeze, so to speak,
Fair enough. Also, I want to give you a heads up. I'm not ignoring you. I don't want to interrupt so I have good, clean audio for the film. So I'm shaking my head, and I don't want to interrupt you by agreeing with you or saying anything. So I'm not ignoring you.
No, that's cool. That's cool. I'm keeping an eye on Ellie. She's had some mobility issues. She was passed out asleep until I started texting you. Now she's just, of course, doing what she does, bumping into things.
Right. So, looking back on your career then, are there any moments or achievements that you hold particularly close to your heart? If so, why?
Man. That's a loaded question, because a lot of people interacting with the listeners over the years. Because I know what it was like for me growing up when I went to see King's X at Hofstra University. And I had, we had wrote a postcard to Doug Pinnick, to King's X, and then he wrote back. So when I went to see them, I brought the postcard with me. And it was monumental talking to him, came when they were sound checking, knocked on the door and said, yeah, I'm, Klank from Circle of Dust, blah, blah, blah. And then the fact that security came back and was like, hey, Doug said, come on in, finish watching them sound check, and then, he'll talk to you. And for me, that's one of those, like, it's rock and roll royalty, and then all these years later to be like, we call each other, we text each other, bro, love you, miss you, haven't seen you in a while. And those kind of things is like a pinnacle, pardon the pun, pinnacle for me, and the fact that, like, I'm kind of brain farting on it. Just the fact that, like, somebody would be there, somebody well respected, as a highlight of your youth growing up, and then them liking your music and becoming friends with you, and then ultimately doing a song with you on an album was like total dream come true. And playing shows like Cornerstone, where we had 5,500 people screaming and yelling, and it's weird because it's hard to put everything down to just one memory or something, especially because at this point in my life, dude, thousands of faces, everything just kind of blurs into one big, long playlist of a memory. And I have a hard time sometimes differentiating time frame. But, doing shows, and actually one of the things too is when Still Suffering first came out, there was a guy from New Jersey who had wrote a letter, and he was like, and this was a pinnacle as far as it was not something that was planned. This guy reached out and said, hey man, I'm struggling. I'm in a bad place and I want to kill myself. I'm looking for one reason not to. Can you offer me one reason not to kill myself? And I'm like, dude, why are you writing to me? Like, I'm just some schmo that makes music, So, and I thought about it and I prayed about it, and I was like, how do you respond to something like this? So I started responding back, and I was just like, I don't even know what to say. So I was kind of like, God, guide my hand. And so I basically told him, about my nephew being born, Anthony at the time. I said, when I was struggling, I said, if I would have taken that route, I would have missed out on my nephew being born, the rest of the other, marriages and the family and events and this and that. And it was just one of those, like, I didn't know what was going to happen with it, and then like I talked a little bit more and elaborated, things in life are never permanent unless you make a decision like that. Whatever you're going through is always temporary. I know it sounds cliche to say there's always tomorrow, look at the bright side, yada, yada, yada. But at the same point, there's truth to it though. Seasons always change. They don't stay the same forever. So, and then the kid wrote me back like 2 weeks later and was like, dude, it's funny you mentioned your nephew being born. He's like, because my niece was born recently. He's like, and I told him in my letter, I was holding, my nephew and he was holding my finger and he was clutching onto me. And I said, I would have never experienced that. And he's like, while I was waiting for your reply, he said, basically the same thing happened to me with my sister's child. It's like, and I was holding her in the hospital and she was this tiny little thing, like clinging onto his shirt, and it resonated with him. And it was just one of those things where he said it helped him out and helped him decide not to make that decision. And I was like, that's heavy. You know what I'm saying? Because you're just a musician. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a poster child for this or that. But the fact that the music hit them and resonated with them enough for them to reach out and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with and this is where I'm at. It's crazy, and it was that was one of the first times for me where that kind of situation happened. And it's still monumental. I mean, here we are almost 30 years later and I'm still talking about it. Because of how intense it was. So yeah, definitely a weird high point. Weird because of the nature of how it went, but it was just a thing also to show me the power of music and just how you do something for yourself. Again, like we said, and you never know who it's going to resonate with and in what way and impact them.
Okay, fair enough. These okay?
Yeah.
These questions okay?
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Let's
absolutely.
see. What are some of the biggest challenges you face as an aging musician, and how are you overcoming them?
Ellie, hey, shh, relax. Sorry, I knew she was going to do this.
No problem.
It's like she's finally hearing you. What? I'm sorry. Can I say the question again?
Yeah, no problem.
What are some of
the biggest challenges? Challenges, yeah, as an aging musician, and how do you overcome them?
A lot of stuff, it turns out to be health related, because as you get older, your body starts to creak and crack and break down a bit. It's harder jumping around on stage like you did in your 20s. You can still do that and still do windmills, but you're going to be down for 3 days afterwards, feeling like you got hit by a Mack truck. The thing is just, it's keeping your health and trying to keep your head, your mind healthy too. Trying to stay in a good place, surrounding yourself with good people. And because it's funny, because as a kid, as you're growing up, especially a young musician, you're diving off stages, you're doing all kinds of craziness and taking risks you probably shouldn't be doing, not even thinking about the consequence. Well, I'm not going to break a bone. I'm indestructible. I'm like Superman. And then as you get older, it's like you cough and you're like, I just broke a rib, But you get out of bed to go to work and you tie your shoe and you're like, you have to exhale before you bend over to tie your shoe, your work boot or whatever. So I think the biggest challenge is just trying to stay healthy and trying to stay fit and keeping yourself in a good mindset, I think, for me anyway.
All right. What role do you think nostalgia plays in the continued popularity of metal, especially amongst aging fans?
Well, nostalgia has a place all across the board because you have bands like Rolling Stones that are 70 plus, 80 plus, they're still out there. You know, even like Motley Crue, all these bands that are getting older, they're out there still doing it. And it's the same reason, like when, Twisted Sister's doing a reunion show. Once upon a time, there was like a weird lull in music where there wasn't really a big demand for the 80s bands and the hair bands and the other bands, but then it was like this wave of nostalgia hit. And people were like, well, I want to go see this guy or that guy, or who knows how much longer, Foreigners on like their final tour. A lot of these bands, Elton John did his farewell tour, and it's no different for metal or heavy music in general, because a lot of these bands, look at Overkill, you look at Metallica, you look at, all the dude, Kerry King and all that, they're still out there doing their thing. I'm sure they creak and crack a lot like a glow stick when they get up and stuff in the morning, but everybody's taking collagen and protein powder and ketones and drinking electrolyte water, and but it's a lot of it, I think, it's seeing part of your youth, your childhood, because that's what you go, oh my God, I saw Rat back in the 80s, or I saw Stryper, or I saw Dokken. And then when you see like, Dokken with George Lynch and this and that, and it's like, oh man, well, who knows how many more times this is going to happen? And especially at this rate, as you get older, you see there's people dropping dead left and right. I mean, the producer guy, Steve Albini, died yesterday, and I think he was like 60 or 61.
61.
I think he just had like a random heart attack or something like that. So tomorrow's never promised. So when you see these guys going out and playing, that's why a lot of times people like, or Kill Switch is coming, or this band is coming, and I need to go see them. I saw them once when I was 13 in Massachusetts, and and then these legacy bands, you see them coming out. And that's the thing. It's the nostalgia aspect. Seeing Judas Priest and seeing Rob Halford, and you go, how does his voice get stronger every year as he gets older? It doesn't make sense. Because he's still hitting them notes. They're a great example of, you go see a Judas Priest show, you know exactly what you're going to get, and you're going to get 350% from all of them. And it's going to be it's not just a show, it's an experience. And that's the hook, the nostalgia aspect, is people go, man, I can't miss this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd be dumb to not go.
Fair enough.
Hi, I'm Daniela Clark.
I'm Barbara Ann Wild.
And we are the Honest AF Show.
Our podcast is real, honest conversation with our celebrity friends and pros.
Covering our anything but average rock and roll lifestyles.
All while tackling the hell that is aging and the battle of beauty.
Oh yeah, nothing is off the table.
The Honest AF Show is available wherever you get your podcasts.
2 more for you. 2 bigger ones. So looking back on your career, is there anything you wish you'd done differently, or any regrets you have? Staying in the music realm, not personal, just in the as Klank.
Is there any regrets? I don't know, per se. I mean, there's always things you wish you could have did better, or I could have been a little smarter with this, or the whole hindsight now that, you're in your 50s, you're like, oh, when I was 20, I should have been smarter, not spent money, save this, save that. I think my biggest regret so far is we haven't made it out of the United States yet. And we're not over and done yet. We're still doing shows. We just haven't done any in a while because we've been focusing on releasing music. But still on the bucket list for Pat and I is to go overseas somewhere, even if it's just for one show. That way I could look, we've been globally distributed for 30 years, but now it'll be nice to be like, to officially say, yes, we are an international band. As soon as you get in that air and you land in that whatever soil over there, you're like, and that's the regret. The only regret so far is that we haven't been able to do it yet. And I emphasize the yet because we're hoping.
All right. So then lastly, What advice would you give to younger musicians just starting out their journey in the metal hard rock world?
The biggest thing is save all your money. Be smart. Don't be frivolous. Doesn't matter. You don't need the fancy rims. You don't need whatever, So work on your craft, hone it, work on your songs, and be smart. Things are different now than when we were younger and starting out. You've got the internet. Everything is right there. Be smart about things. If your biggest thing, the biggest hurdle right now you will focus or hit at some point is you need to have a marketing budget to get the music out there. Even if everything is DIY these days, you can just put it out online, but that's like releasing a song into the black hole, into the vortex. You need to draw people into it. Be smart, save money, and just have some kind of marketing budget for what it doesn't even, music, graphic arts, poet, same thing. You got to have, it takes money you got to spend money to make money. It's a crude cliche saying, but it's true. I would just say be smart, save your money, and think about where you're going to put it. And the biggest thing would be like if you're marketing and stuff, especially if you're making CDs or something, or you're getting it out there. Marketing. Get a radio promotions guy, a PR firm to get you interviews, podcasts, write-ups, and whatever hard copy paper. It's a relic, a dinosaur at this point, but whatever media is out there that's still physical that you can touch, you want to get out and get on Spotify playlists and stuff like that. And all that takes money. So be smart. If you got a paper route and you're grinding away, if you're on the East Coast shoveling snow or something like that, or up in the Pacific Northwest, do it. Save that money. Just don't be dumb about it. Listen to somebody who struggled his whole life living check to check. Be smart with your money.
Awesome. So then lastly, can you give me like a 2-3 sentence overview of Klank?
Klank. We've been saying for years that Klank is where the mosh pit meets the dance floor. Klank is like a page out of a journal or a diary, but set to music. We are considered electronic industrial metal. We always call ourselves like a metal band with a lot of window dressing. The samples, the synths, the 808s, the kicks, the noises, all the stuff that Pat creates and warps and manipulates. We're a metal band with window dressing, and we like to focus on harmony. And we also like to not be held by any parameters. That's why some songs might be super psycho heavy with guttural vocals, but then you'll hit a spot that might have 6 or 7 or 8 layers of clean vocals above it. Since day one, we never wanted to be in any one particular box or stuck in any one genre. No offense to Slayer, but Slayer album, exactly what it's going to sound like, no matter what year it is, no matter when you put it on. And that's cool. That works for some bands. For us, we like to, push the boundaries a little bit more, experiment. And as you get older, your tastes change a bit too. So you go, I'm really influenced by this band or that band these days. And maybe I want to try something a little different with our stuff. And, and that's what we've always stayed the same to our core, but constantly trying to evolve, if that makes sense. Always trying to better yourself, better your craft,
Awesome. Hope that wasn't too bad, man.
No, not at all. It's always a pleasure. Bruce.
This is Krista Makes, guitarist and vocalist for Less Than Jake, and host of Krista Makes a Podcast, a songwriting podcast where every week I'm joined by an amazing guest to break down the writing, recording, and release of one iconic song from their career. In our giant evergreen back catalog of episodes, we've had rock legends such as Dee Snider and Huey Lewis, punk rock favorites like Mark Hoppus, Fat Mike, and Brett Gurewitz, and up-and-coming artists of today such as Liz Stokes of the Beths and Genesis Owusu. We've had guests from all genres and styles of music, and I guarantee that if you peruse our back catalog, you'll see several episodes that'll make you say, man, I gotta hear that. Whether you're a fan of music or a creator of music yourself, you'll take away a whole new appreciation for the songs you know and love. Krista Makes a Podcast is available for free on all the places you could possibly listen to podcasts, and new episodes come out every Monday.